and welcome to In Focus, partnered by Latrobe Financial. In this video, we're going to be discussing some of the key trends that we've been seeing in the Australian demographic space since COVID-19 hit, and the lending options that are available to these borrowing segments and how brokers can help them. To help us do that, we're thrilled to be joined today by Cory Bannister, Chief Lending Officer of Latrobe Financial, and Chief Demographer and Managing Director of the Demographics Group, Bernard. Welcome both gentlemen, and thank you so much for joining me today. Cory, we're mentioning today all around some of the trends that we've been seeing since the COVID-19 pandemic hit. And obviously there's been a lot of change and upheaval across the lending landscape, and obviously brokers have been noticing this too. For you, I wonder how Latrobe Financial's been supporting borrowers during COVID-19 and what sort of themes you've been seeing come through.
Sure, thanks, Annie. Latrobe Financial, we're really pleased to be able to provide support to borrowers in a couple of areas. The first and foremost were that we had to provide additional capacity and capability to a dedicated hardship assistance team assisting borrowers who are financially impacted by COVID. That included for us a number of secondments from our credit team across to that hardship assistance team, putting our specialist credit skills and solutions mindsets really right at the front line of this particular issue. One thing that we're really pleased about was our staff's attitude towards putting others before self and really putting their hand up to get across and support so that we could get our borrowers on track as quickly as possible. The hardship assistance program that we provided covered 4 particular areas: deferments of loan repayments. In some cases, we offered interest-only facilities to assist cash flow. We waived fees and charges where relevant if they could provide support, and we also got involved in some debt consolidation and structuring to reduce their monthly loan commitments. So that was how we supported our existing customers. With respect to prospective customers, we continued to work with creditworthy customers right throughout this period. In fact, in the period between March and June, we saw a little over $5 billion in loan originations, which showed really healthy demand from creditworthy customers throughout this period, and we continued to support them. And then finally, at a corporate level, something we're most proud of was our $1 million donation to the Epworth Hospital to provide additional ICU equipment in order to cope with the anticipated influx of COVID-19 admissions during this pandemic.
And what sort of trends have you been seeing since the pandemic came through? Have you seen any changes in the types of borrowers coming to Latrobe Financial for help?
Well, it's one of the oldest non-bank financial institutions. We've been lending money for over 70 years, and during that time we've witnessed some really interesting macro themes that drive our product innovation. We're continually listening to brokers and our clients and looking to identify solutions that are both timely and relevant, and some themes that we're seeing now and we expect to play out through 2021 at a macro level. First, the ageing population driving downsizes. COVID has certainly reinforced the point that life can be cut short at any given moment, and keeping the large family home, which can often represent the majority of the household balance sheet, may no longer be desirable for elderly Australians who recognise that perhaps a more modest abode in the same community that they're familiar with is more appropriate, and particularly if that can unlock equity that they can use to enjoy their retirement or perhaps to invest in alternative areas, then that might be more appropriate for the time being. So we're seeing good demand there. The second theme we're seeing playing out is upgraders looking to capitalise on buying opportunities in sought after locations. And this is really in light of the recent moderation of property prices in some areas following a period of solid growth, combined with the low and likely to be lower for longer interest rate environment. In fact, as we sit here today, we're talking about potential RBA rate cut on Cup Day. That's all resulting in strong demand from this borrower cohort looking to either trade up the size of their family home or the dimensions of their family home, or perhaps to get a foothold in the suburb that they'd hoped to get into. Affordability has been a pressing issue for some time now, and sister suburbs was something that many Australians had to accept until they reached a time they could get into the area they really sought after, and we're starting to see that shift occur. The final theme that I'll talk to now is borrowers looking to build their forever home. Their home's got a home office, a home gym and a backyard, and I know Bernard might have some views on this in a moment, but I think this is a theme that certainly has been accelerated by COVID. I think there's a recognition now that, pandemics do occur and lockdowns are possible. And I think that's reduced the glossiness of some of the shared living arrangements, whether that's sharing lift, elevator wells, communal dining areas in apartment buildings, and those sorts of things that we saw in vogue more recently, I think have lost some glossiness. People have now become accustomed to working from home. Both employees and employers acknowledge that that's likely to be a trend that will continue in some capacity, perhaps a couple of days a week at least. And if that is the case, they want a Zoom room, they want the home office, a gym, backyard, etc. And we're seeing good demand from families with young children. These are often early millennials and Gen Xers who are looking to take advantage of this theme at the moment. The challenge for all of this right now, for all these cohorts, is that the drivers are being met with a limited property supply. That's driven by the current uncertainty in the market and the lockdown disruptions impacting the real estate markets, and that's caused paralysis. No one is willing to move without that level of certainty on the other side of the transaction. For instance, you don't want to sell your property too early until you've secured the property that you want to go into. And on the other side, you don't want to buy too early if you've got some uncertainty about the prospects of selling your existing home. So a lot of these things are largely unfulfilled, but they do exist, and this is where we see a great opportunity for brokers in the future.
Fantastic. Thanks, Cory. And there's so much information in there that I want to unpack a little bit further. The first one, I think, really is around downsizers. And now, obviously, we know this is normally done by older generation parents who maybe their kids have moved out of their home and they're looking, they're empty nesters, they're looking to downsize their home. Bernard, I want to come to you to talk a little bit around some of the trends we're seeing in downsizers and what the Australian population looks like. We often hear that it's an ageing Australian population. Is that true? And what sort of trends are we seeing at the moment in terms of what's happening in maybe the older generation?
Well, there's no doubt, Annie, that we're all ageing, and Australia is certainly leading the pack in terms of demographic change. Around about 3 million Australians would be described as baby boomers. These are people that are say late 50s through to early 70s or so. This is a significant increase on the preceding generation that has moved into retirement. And so you've got a large bubble of baby boomers moving into retirement, and they are redefining how retirement is lived. And part of that story, I think, involves downshifting or downsizing. People might, in fact, want to move into an apartment or a townhouse within their local area. There is also the logic that we're seeing people escape the capital city, particularly in the COVID era. This group of escapees, if you like, virus escapees seeking provincial Australia. This is the Vespa movement that is looking for a lifestyle area, sea change or tree change communities just beyond the edge of the metropolitan area. So I think there are a number of themes. These are the downshifting, downsizing baby boomers within the metropolitan area, looking for a more streamlined house or lifestyle, as well as those that are moving towards regional areas. And those moving towards the regional areas, I think, would also include late 30-somethings and 40-somethings who would take with them the capacity to do their job online. So I actually see quite a significant shift in housing, in property, in demand over the next 5 or 6 years, as the narrative of urban life in Australia is reimagined. Part of it being driven by the ageing of the population, part of it being driven by the new protocols associated with the pandemic.
That's really interesting. And I think, hearing that tree change, sea change sort of lifestyle is definitely something that sounds very, very attractive to most of us, whether or not we're downsizers. And I think it's interesting as well, you're talking about, the fact that there's sort of two different types of downsizer there. Those who want to be in the cities and maybe taking advantage of some of the amenities available to them, and others who potentially looking at the more regional areas. Cory, I wonder at Latrobe Financial if you've seen any evidence of people moving to the regions for downsizing, particularly at the moment.
We have, Annie. We've seen borrowers moving both to regional coastal areas in particular, as well as interstate. I think, net interstate migration, you'll see a real shift towards Queensland and some of the northern states. We're seeing that already, and we expect that to continue.
Great. And I also wonder a little bit around whether COVID-19 will actually prevent people from, maybe sort of moving to particular suburbs as they hadn't in the past. For example, will someone who was thinking about moving into the CBD to be closer to the museums or to be closer to the big concert halls, which now might not be as open or as sort of widespread, still want to do that? I wonder if either of you have heard, anecdotally, or whether you've seen any evidence of people moving away from downsizing to the CBD. And Bernard, I'm going to come to you with that question first.
Well, I haven't actually cited any data to support it, but it certainly does make sense. The inner city, say within a 5K radius of the CBD, has really been dominated by the millennial generation. Apparently sitting in cafes eating smashed avocado, apparently. The great trend, I think, is that this generation that have been in their late 20s and up to mid-30s, over the next 5 years, that generation is going to move late 30s and into their 40s. And this is where they move from first homeowner to a home upgrader. So I think that what we're going to see in the early 2020s is a real shift towards the upgrader market, driven by effectively an echo of the baby boom. This is the millennial generation having 1 or 2 kids, and it's very hard to live that hipster lifestyle in a 1-bedroom apartment if you've got 2 kids. So I can see that generation actually moving out of the inner city, maybe towards the middle suburbs, or maybe even to the very urban edge, to get that 4 bedrooms, 2 bathroom, the Zoom room that Cory mentioned. I haven't heard that one before. I'm going to nick that one. I love that, the Zoom room. And if you are actually working from home, you do need that home broadcast facility. So yes, I can see that being a trend of the 2020s.
That's so interesting. And Cory, you mentioned already about upgraders as well. I wonder, in terms of what we're going to be looking for in upgraders, obviously we mentioned there the Zoom room and other sort of aspects of living at home and working from home now, which might change the types of property that people might be looking for. For any brokers maybe assisting their clients at the moment who might be looking to upgrade, are there any particular trends that you've seen in terms of not only the type of property that they'd be looking for? Is it detached housing, for example? Is it a flat? Or have you seen any trends in where these particular places are popular at the moment for upgrading to? And Cory, I'm going to come to you for that.
Thanks, Annie. Yeah, I think there's a real shift towards community hubs. I think people are putting a greater value on the communities they live in. I think, one thing that's these lockdowns, and particularly at the moment here in Victoria, where we're tied to a 5K radius, you become very aware of your immediate surroundings. So I think there's a premium that people are now placing on exactly where they live, and that's where we're seeing upgraders looking to relocate, and it might be from a sister suburb, literally across a freeway or across a major thoroughfare into the suburb that they've always coveted. We're seeing now, with prices moderating, interest rates being lower, we're starting to see a shift of people looking to lay their roots where they think they can live for the next 10 years at least.
And I think that probably is something that we'll also see increasingly with an older generation, if they are looking to either upgrade or downsize their property. Considering what's close to them, within that 5-kilometre radius, should, touch wood, this ever happen again where we are restricted in our movements, they might want to be close to a hospital, for example, or to their grandchildren, have some sort of capability where they're able to actually travel within that 5-kilometre radius and have everything that they want at their disposal nearby. So when we're looking at it's particularly really the ageing population, either looking to downsize because they're empty nesters and they want to either have that sea change, tree change property, or they want to be closer to the metropolitan area, or if we're looking at upgraders looking to take advantage of the Zoom room, the home gym and everything that they need to work from home as well. What sort of products can they look at to actually gain access to the finance to enable these dreams of theirs? And I know Latrobe Financial might have a product that's suitable. Cory, what brokers need to know about the options available to these borrowers?
Thanks, Annie. There's clearly a number of options available, but as I mentioned, at the moment, the lack of stock on market is presenting some challenges to accessing the straightforward solutions that borrowers are typically accustomed to. So we've been thinking about this, and we've recently launched our bridging loan to the marketplace that really enables the upgraders or downsizers, or even those who are looking to build their forever home, the ability to secure their tomorrow today before they've actually had to sell their existing property. Now, we make that available to them with an interest budget factored into the loan amount, because we know that part of the barrier to doing this is being able to service a loan at a peak debt where you're carrying both the mortgage on your existing property and then the property that you're going to purchase. So typically we see these loans lasting in the order of 6 to 12 months. We'll factor in the interest budget to that loan amount, so repayments are taken care of during that period. But it gives them the security and the confidence to take their next step and then sort out their existing situation when they're able to. And we're hearing from brokers that the customers are really appreciating that option, that because of that safety and security. Real estate agents are also very pleased because they feel as though the wheel needs a little bit of grease, and this could be the grease that just starts to get activity happening in the market. So we see this product as having a really positive impact at a time that Australia really needs it.
Wonderful. Before I let you go then, Bernard, I just want to pick your brain one last time just to figure out a little bit more around what you expect to see in property moving forward for the rest of 2020.
Well, I think that as soon as all of the lockdown arrangements have been ended, particularly in Victoria, I think there's going to be a burst of activity. There's nothing like a global pandemic, and to actually make people take stock, to think, am I really doing what I want to do? Have I been delaying the decision to downsize or to upgrade? Maybe I should be acting now to pursue that forever home, or to downsize or to move to a sea change or tree change community. I see the pandemic as a little bit like a circuit breaker or an ignition point to actually prompt people to make those decisions, those big life decisions around property, around location. In fact, it prompts people to say, look, it's now or never, life's too short, I need to pursue my dream, and how do I do that? And part of that involves the financing of it, however that is managed.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you both so much for insights today and for sharing your views and analysis on what's been happening in the property market since COVID-19 hit. We hope you all find this really useful. If you want further information on Latrobe Financial's bridging products, you can find the information below, and do obviously visit Latrobe Financial's website for more. I hope you all have a wonderful week. We'll catch you next week for another episode of In Focus.